Good morning. Great to see you all. Thank you so much for coming to Enterprise ReadyConf 2025. We're absolutely thrilled to have you here. You know, as I was putting this slide deck together to talk about really why we brought you here at Enterprise ReadyConf, it dawned on me that one of the absolute best benefits of coming here is actually not what you're going to see on stage today. It's the people to your left and to your right. There is an incredible set of folks here at SF Jazz Center attending this event today. Folks from the major tech companies like Google and Microsoft and Amazon, but also a lot of smaller startups that you might have heard of or even use their products. And what we're all doing is coming here to talk about the future of enterprise SaaS and AI. So before we get into all this stuff about what we've shipped at WorkOS, the panelists, or the great demos we have, I just encourage you to make sure to spend some time today connecting with each of you, with each other. Create that community and make sure those relationships go forward afterward. This is the second year we've done ERC. Last year, we had about 60 people. It's pretty clear we have more people here today in the audience. So I'm really excited about the growth of this event and where we're going to take it. So let's talk about WorkOS. And to talk about WorkOS, really, we need to talk about startups, the startup journey. Quick show of hands, how many of you are actually building startups or have worked at startups? Yeah, it's a ton of you. It's most of the audience, right? So you'll probably be familiar with this, the startup journey. First, you build your product and you launch. And you might launch on Twitter, you might launch on Product Hunt, just to get your product out there into the world. And if you're lucky, that hard work will pay off and you will get early product market fit. People will start sharing your product, they'll start using it day after day, and then eventually, you can monetize this. You can create a business around it, get people to pay you, and have that be the fuel that drives the company forward. And this is really the thing we all hope for when starting businesses or working at startups. There's this business book called Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. And if you go to business school, they force you to read it. I never went to business school, but I did read it. And in the book, Moore talks about really the adoption curve for all products and technology. And it starts over here with the techies adopting products, the early innovators, the people that are trying new things. A lot of that is probably people in this room, right? Hackers that are trying new experiences, new products. And eventually, it can get adopted by the visionaries, and at some point, hopefully, it gets adopted by the majority, and then eventually the skeptics. So all technology follows this wave, whether it's cell phones or microwaves or electric cars, you name it, follows this wave. And in this book, Moore says that products must actually cross a critical gap in this to get adoption. And he calls this the chasm. And it really exists here between those early innovators and the adopters. And a lot of products fail to cross this, and then they just fail in the market. So if you think about things that were failed products out there, whether it was like the Juicero, juice squeezer, or Google Glass, or things like this that were ahead of their time, largely it's because they weren't able to cross this and get mass market adoption. So it's called the chasm. When we talk about WorkOS, we actually believe that there's a similar chasm here for enterprise software, for people building startups. And we call this the enterprise chasm. And what it does is it separates apps that are really built for small teams, individuals having that PLG growth from ones that get breakout success within the workplace, within larger organizations that can eventually, like Dropbox, become public. And what I posit is that there's actually a set of things that you have to build for your product very specifically to cross this chasm. There's a set of things that aren't necessarily needed to get product market fit, but you need to add later to go up market. And this is a lot of the stuff to become enterprise ready. If you don't build these things, your product actually might fail. It'll definitely suffer growth, and maybe a competitor will even emerge to take your market. So crossing the enterprise chasm is extremely important for companies to quickly win their market, especially as they're being disrupted. Getting product market fit is not enough. You need to have it, for sure. But it's not enough to actually win your market. You need to also become enterprise ready. And this is what WorkOS is all about. WorkOS, what we provide, is infrastructure for enterprise features. So instead of you having to go build this stuff, we can provide it to you through an API so you can quickly integrate it with your product and get it into the hands of those enterprise customers, and ideally cross that chasm really fast and keep growing. Turns out this is really hard to do. That's why a lot of companies don't do it themselves, and why there's a lot of value in what we've built and brought to market. It's complicated to build. It takes a lot of time, it slows you down, and probably most importantly, engineers don't like building this stuff. A lot of this is like security and feature integration that connects to enterprise IT systems. So how have we done this at WorkOS? Well, we deliver it through an API, and we have a whole bunch of different stuff that we've built over the years. We could spend all day here just talking about acronyms that exist in enterprise IT. But these are some of the things that we've built. OffKit is our identity platform. It's used today by thousands of applications to actually provide the login box, sessions, the full experience around identity. Also, these things like SSO and SCIM are pieces that integrate with enterprise IT systems for user management, user provisioning, and user lifecycle. Role-based access control, permissions, controlling different capabilities, multi-factor auth, audit logs, and even the admin experience. WorkOS is a set of different building blocks to help you very quickly add all of these kind of enterprise IT features to your product. And the way this works in practice is it's actually kind of like a stack. You can think about it that way. At the very bottom, we have our integrations. We plug in all the different enterprise IT systems that are out there. So if your customer says, we use Entra, we need to plug into that, or Okta, or Ping Identity, or OneLogin, or Shibboleth, or any of these things, WorkOS works everywhere. On top of that, we provide business logic, so you don't have to write that code to actually integrate these things together and provide behavior. And then finally, we provide the user interface. UI components, widgets, hosted surfaces, so you're just done end to end. It can be styled to fit your product, but you don't even have to build the UI. And the result is you can ship your product much more quickly to enterprise. So this sounds great for small companies and startups, for sure, as they're growing. But we've also found that this is a really great fit for larger companies, companies that are accelerating and actually might have already built some enterprise stuff into their product, but it's not sufficient for their growth. One product you probably use that uses WorkOS is ChatGPT. How many people use ChatGPT? Yeah, it's all of you and about 700 million other people every week. WorkOS actually powers all of enterprise auth inside of ChatGPT. So every business customer, every enterprise customer signing in is going through WorkOS for SSO and SCIM. Another one, Perplexity. You know, an AI-powered search engine really taking on the titans of Google. For Perplexity, they have an enterprise plan. They started off with PLG, they started off with consumers, and then launched Enterprise about a year and a half ago, powered by WorkOS. And one of my favorite products here, Cursor. Cursor changing the way that people write code, bringing AI to the software development lifecycle. If you've signed into Cursor, you've signed in through WorkOS. These are just a few of our customers, but there's a lot more. Today, WorkOS is operating at scale. We do over 67 million API requests per day, which is a lot. We have over 38,000 different enterprise environments connected to WorkOS. So this is all of our customers' customers connected in all these environments. And kind of one of my favorite stats is, we just checked this, I think, a couple days ago. We're tracking over 81 million unique user accounts inside of WorkOS. That's more than 2 Californias inside of our system. So we've already been operating this at scale. So even if you haven't heard of WorkOS or haven't used it yourself, you're probably using a product that's powered by it today. Whether that's OpenAI or Perplexity, you know, something like Cursor, or even these like new products like Clay or Granola, Hex, all powered by WorkOS under the hood. So you might be asking, like, why is this happening? WorkOS is actually not a new company. We're not a brand new startup. It sort of pains me to say it, but we are a pre-AI company. You know, we were founded, we started working on this at the beginning of 2019. So we're coming up on 7 years, which in the startup world is like you're a dinosaur. So why is a company that was founded in that era now being used by all of these AI businesses? Why are we part of this AI wave? Well, one reason is that if you look at all of these AI companies, you know, whether it's OpenAI or Cursor, and you kind of look at them a little bit more closely, you'll realize that they're actually all B2B SaaS companies under the hood. The way that they're building their product and delivering it to customers is using AI, but actually the way that they provide value, how they charge those customers, and the type of businesses that they serve are other companies, other businesses. So it's a continuation of the B2B SaaS wave that we've been seeing for many years, the transition to cloud, all that great stuff. The second thing is that these AI products tend to grow way faster. And I don't just mean a little bit faster, I mean like way faster. Cursor's growth is like not just a hockey stick, it's just like straight up. They were the fastest company to reach 100 million in revenue. And there's rumors that they're tracking towards $1 billion in revenue next year. Crazy for a company this early. So these AI businesses grow much, much, much faster, enabled by WorkOS. And probably to me, the most interesting bit that I've noticed is to win, these AI startups actually need to be enterprise ready almost immediately. So in the previous era of SaaS, companies could take their time getting enterprise. You could spend years and years, 5, 6, maybe more years, waiting to go after enterprise. Companies like Figma or Dropbox or even Slack focused on the consumer area initially and then eventually added an enterprise motion. That doesn't cut it in today's AI world. These companies need to go after enterprise essentially immediately, within their first year. And if they don't, someone else is going to capture that market. It's extremely competitive. And so we're seeing not just these AI companies grow faster, not just them be B2B SaaS companies under the hood, but actually there's an urgency and a need to actually have them become enterprise ready and scale. Behind all of this, WorkOS is powering this enterprise wave. So despite being a company founded almost 7 years ago and supporting lots of customers from before the AI wave, we found ourselves really at the center of it. Now for us, building authentication was always really just step one. The company isn't named AuthOS, right? It's named WorkOS. And we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years imagining and building new products for our customers and trying to find new ways to help them actually grow faster up market, focusing all this stuff kind of around like security and IT and integrations, the stuff developers generally don't want to build, but it's really important to get right. So I wanted to recap a few of the things that we've shipped over the last year up till today, and then we'll talk about some stuff going forward. So here's a few things that we shipped over the last year. First, WorkOS Radar. WorkOS Radar is a product we actually announced last year at ERC, and it's real-time protection against bots, fraud, and abuse, and it keeps your app secure. You can kind of think about this as a security layer, a security blanket that goes around your application. And we had tried other types of security products for blocking bots or fraud or abuse, but we found that they just really didn't cut it, especially at the user and identity layer. In WorkOS, in our position, we had so much more signal to be able to actually detect anomalous behavior and block fraudulent activity. WorkOS Radar is actually doing over 2 million checks per week now, a year later since announcing it. And we're running it for companies like Cursor. And I call it Cursor here because there's actually a new form of fraud that's emerging in the AI world. People trying to get free accounts. You can imagine there's tons of people in the world that don't want to have to pay for Cursor and want to use it. And so there's a lot of free Cursor kind of trial abuse that happens. People using throwaway email domains or deleting their account and creating another one. That's just one example of something that Radar is able to detect. It's not really a security thing, it's more of a fraud thing, but it saves them a lot of money on their cloud bill. Another product we launched is WorkOS Connect. So core to the identity experience actually is the power to federate this identity from other systems. So WorkOS Connect lets your app essentially act as its own identity service. The lingo here is it enables identity federation from your customers. In practice, what this means is if you ever want to ship like a sign in with my app button, if you want partners to be able to sign in with your users, you can do this through WorkOS. WorkOS becomes an identity server. And this is super powerful. We've been especially rolling this out recently with folks building MCP servers where they want to connect their identity systems. Feature flags. This is another product we shipped actually this summer, right? So you can see us expanding out from just auth and identity. Once you're integrated with the user and org experience, we can create actually a wonderful experience for feature flags inside of your app. How many of you have feature flags in your app that you use to build? Yeah, most people. It's the modern way to actually deploy new capabilities. And it's really similar actually to product entitlements, turning things on and off for customers. WorkOS feature flags is like super easy to plug in. If you're using OffKit, it just works. You just turn it on. And it integrates seamlessly, with your existing data model. So those are just a few of the products that we've built over the last year. But there's a ton more. We've done 3 huge launch weeks. There's dozens of them. I could be up here all day talking about things in our changelog. But the thing I'm trying to really iterate here is, if you thought about WorkOS previously as an auth platform, you need to think again. There is so much more in it today. What started off as just a few building blocks for identity, authentication, user management has actually grown now into a bunch of different capabilities and expanded into everything that you need to build your app to go after enterprise customers and move up market. So that brings us to today. So the things we shipped in the past, over many years plus the last year. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about 6 new things that we're going to show you for the very first time that are coming to WorkOS. And in true WorkOS fashion, we are going to do these with live demos. So fingers crossed. All right, let's jump in and get started. So I mentioned ChatGPT earlier. Who here has heard of the ChatGPT Apps SDK? It was announced just a couple weeks ago. All right, so ChatGPT, probably the fastest growing new consumer product of all time. And we think that this is going to be the next great app platform that people want to build on top of. But there's one huge problem: connecting your app to ChatGPT. If you're building something that has public data, like kind of their Zillow demo, that's fine. You can just use the public API. But what if you want to build a ChatGPT app that actually connects to sensitive data, or corporate data, or your users' data? Or maybe it needs to do some kind of transaction. Maybe you're buying something. For that, you need auth. You have to have auth. And that's where WorkOS comes in. And we've built what we think is a really slick solution for this that will make it extremely fast for you guys to build new products to actually integrate with the ChatGPT platform. And to give a demo of this, please welcome Tobin from WorkOS.
So, if there's 2 things WorkOS loves, it's 3-letter protocol acronyms and giving away free shirts. We made this very cool MCP shirt for MCP Night 1.0, which was a huge hit. I see lots of folks around San Francisco wearing it. And for the ChatGPT Apps SDK, we have a new shirt that you can only access through ChatGPT. So let me show you how you add an app that you can take your enterprise app, connect it into ChatGPT, turn on developer mode, go down to your connectors, create a new connector. I'm going to put in the name of the shop where you can go and actually get a very cool shirt, mcp.shop/mcp. Make sure OAuth is turned on because we need valid user accounts. We don't want everyone buying and DDoSing us with shirts. And when that connects, we will go through an auth flow. I will authorize the app. This is using WorkOS Connect. And then you'll have all of your user state and the built-in protections needed to have a really cool app experience available to those 700 million users of ChatGPT. MCP Shop is now connected, and you can just go down here and go at mcp.shop. Right, this is the app you're connecting to, and say, show me the MCP Shop store. Now, we never really know what ChatGPT is going to do in this moment. And frankly, it is remarkably slow because what it's going to try and do is render an iframe that we can then show off our shirt into. As it calls this is actually MCP under the hood connecting to ChatGPT with a UI frame, which I think is very, very cool. And you'll see this beautiful shirt that you can exclusively get through the Apps SDK modeled here for you all. And so we can go in and we can order. It's a dynamic element. It's got my user state saved. I've already typed it in a different AI browser so that we can go through, place the order, and assuming that my cache in ChatGPT didn't clear between now and when I put this laptop here, an order will happen, and I'm about to get a very cool shirt sent to my house. So if you want to see what it's like to connect Apps SDK to ChatGPT with your app, this is a great demo repo that you can help build on top of. And if you want a cool free shirt, check out mcp.shop. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for Tobin warming us up with our very first live demo. So that is real. You can go get yourself a shirt right now or at the break or whenever. That's powered by MCP under the hood, the Model Context Protocol, which is how the application's actually authorizing in. And the example we gave is buying a shirt, of course, but you could imagine doing something with your product. Maybe it's like updating a Salesforce record, or connecting into your system and making some type of other transaction, or showcasing data about the user. The point is, this makes it really easy to connect your application to ChatGPT. And specifically, to this over 700 million weekly active users. That's why we think this is going to be a huge platform. There's so many people already using it. It has full support for MCP via OAuth 2.1 and the whole client credentials, just dynamic discovery process. If those words don't mean anything to you, don't worry about it. It just works. Specifically, you can connect this with your existing application. You don't have to do a bunch of migrations. It works with your existing user base. So if you already have an app that's been in production for years, you already have customers, that's great. That's the whole point. Let's bring that into the world of AI, connected to ChatGPT through WorkOS OffKit. All right. That's OffKit for ChatGPT apps. Let's keep going. Second, OffKit for platforms. So earlier this year, we started doing some work with other companies, with other partner companies. We did a project with Laravel, which is a new PHP framework and hosting platform that's really popular, to make it really easy to embed OffKit inside of it. We also did this with Supabase. So if you're using Supabase, WorkOS OffKit can power your in-app user experience for sign-in and sessions. And recently, we also improved this even more and launched it with Convex. Who here knows Convex? Has built something with Convex? Yeah. Convex is a new platform that makes it extremely fast to build data-driven, rich applications. It actually does all the data synchronization under the hood. And what we're doing is actually bringing this experience we've added with these partners to all of you. So we're going to make it possible for you to take everything we've built at WorkOS and embed it inside of your platforms out there, inside of your user experiences, to give the same type of authentication and identity system to your customers for whatever they're building. So we have a very special guest to give us a demo of this. Please welcome James from Convex, the CTO and co-founder of Convex, to show off this integration.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. So Convex is a platform that provides an entire backend for application developers, in particular application developers that want to keep their data in sync from their application service to their database. And almost any interesting application that stores critical state needs an auth story. And Convex has built-in basic auth for our free users. But our customers skew very heavily towards real companies that want real enterprise-grade auth because they plan to scale their businesses, right? And this is a challenge for us. So let me show you creating a project live in Convex. So this is the onboarding experience if you're a developer building on Convex. And it's very important to me and to us and to our customers. This is a smooth experience. This is our kind of magic moment. This is our chance to get people to be customers of Convex. And what is very negatively impactful to our onboarding experience is that people have to break out of this flow, go to a third party, sign up for a different service, go through their onboarding flow, copy a bunch of configuration state, paste it into Convex, and we potentially lose them as customers in the process. And this is why I'm excited about OffKit. So with OffKit, we can provision a user on WorkOS right from within our onboarding flow. So I'm going to pick an email address that I don't think I've used before, hopefully. So this is an email address that's not registered with WorkOS. Convex is going to go talk to WorkOS's servers, deploy a user with WorkOS, and now the product is deployed. So that was the Convex dashboard you saw really quickly. This is the application running live in the cloud. I'll just log in via the WorkOS login dialog. And then we have it. This is a live application running on the internet. So we can go and have a look at state in the table, and we can see our authentication settings here. All the auth details that personally I hate filling out anytime I'm building a Convex project. This is interestingly the biggest friction for us, for people using Convex, is they say they love the platform, but it's a pain to get auth set up. And so this solves this problem. So, okay, cool, you're an enterprise now. You have a working application. It took you approximately 5 seconds to do so. What happens when you want to go and administer your WorkOS account? What if you want to go change your login options? Well, there's an email came through. So here we go. You've been invited to WorkOS. So you can log straight in. I won't go through this login flow. You can trust me that this works. And just go and log in and administer your WorkOS account right there. So this is really exciting for me because, one, a lot of our customers are enterprises. I want them to have great enterprise-grade auth, but I don't want them breaking out of our smooth onboarding flow, right? I want this to feel seamless to them, which feels seamless to me. So I just want to thank WorkOS for helping us get this together, and I'm very excited about OffKit.
Thanks again so much, James. We're really thrilled to work with Convex on this. You saw how smooth that was. And we don't want the auth and identity piece to be a barrier when people are building new apps. We want to shorten the time between when you have an idea and when you can use whatever tools you want to get it into production. So with something like Convex there, it's just disappears into the background. It's just magical. Essentially, this is WorkOS OffKit embedded in your service. So if you have an app platform or an infrastructure solution or a vibe coding platform or something like this, like Convex, come talk with us. We'd love to find ways to connect with you in this. How this is working under the hood is you're actually calling partner APIs that are not public that allow you to provision environments on behalf of your customers. And then those customers can then claim those environments when they actually go to production. So everything you saw in that CLI, it's being done behind the scenes completely transparently. It's really slick. And essentially, this is scalable identity infrastructure for your users. So the same platform that powers things like ChatGPT, things like Perplexity, or millions of users in Cursor can be embedded in your platform as well. We think this is going to be really powerful and help elevate the whole ecosystem. All right, that's OffKit for platforms. So there's another platform that probably all of us use, which is Stripe. And what we also found, in addition to people having to write all this auth integration, is that when they go into production, when they get customers, eventually they start charging them. And you have to write all this code to kind of glue WorkOS to Stripe, to OffKit to Stripe. You have to do all of this manual work to track users on both sides and keep them in sync. And it's just kind of a pain. And like any code, once you write it, there's a potential for bugs in it. And the last thing you want are bugs in your billing system, not charging customers, or God forbid you charge them the wrong amount, charge them too much. We found that the most common ways that developers actually provide these types of SaaS products is per seat pricing. And WorkOS actually has all the data about users. So we've been working on this really cool way to kind of take OffKit, WorkOS OffKit, and take Stripe and bring them together and auto-synchronize all of this data together. This partnership will actually be something that can sync the user data in real time. And to show you this, we've built this fake app, so this isn't real. The integration is real, but the app you can't use. It's called Vibe Check. And please welcome Eric to give a demo of this. Really excited to check it out.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. So here is Vibe Check, our totally real app. We've been making good progress building it, and we're now ready. We want to get billing, so once we get customers, we can charge them appropriately. So over in the WorkOS dashboard, you can now go to the add-ons. We already had a Stripe one now, but it's a bit different. We used to have just entitlements, and now you can sync organization seat counts, which are going to go to a billing meter with Stripe. So let's go ahead and connect. Pick my Vibe Check Stripe account. All right, so now we're back in WorkOS. We can see that we've connected to Stripe. There's one other piece of setup we have to do. So we're going to go over here to an organization we have, and we have to tell WorkOS what the ID of our Stripe customer is. Now, in probably your app, your application logic would be creating your Stripe customer and your organization at the same time and setting that information. So now that all this is done, we've created a billing meter in Stripe, and we've sent the number of users. So let's go check in our WorkOS dashboard. We've got 4 users here. So that's what we should expect to see in Stripe. Stripe has this usage-based billing. We got the WorkOS seat count. All right. We've got one event come through here, and it says 4 users. So now what we can do is go ahead and build our price plan here. Let's call it our basic plan. Okay. There we go. I know how to type. We're going to pick more pricing options here. Go to usage-based pricing. We'll say it costs $2 a month per user. And now this meter is available when you're selecting your plans. So we're going to go ahead. And we've got to now go add a subscription for the customer. Seems like we've got a little bit of lag here. When this pops up, we'll go pick our customer, and it will show us that the pricing varies based on the meter. We're going to go ahead, start our subscription at the start of the month. And pick this so I don't actually... Okay, we click through and we'll see that the next invoice, we had 4 users, $2. If I do that right, I think our next invoice should be $8. That's correct. All right, so now we're going to go check out our users in the VibeCheck app. I'm going to log in here. I'm not Nick Holden, but I play him on TV. And over here in the settings, we've got these users. But this guy here he's not a Blue Jay. So we're going to get rid of him. Sorry, Cal. Better luck next year. And if we go back to Stripe, to our usage-based billing, we will see a new event come through. I hope. There we go. 3. And the invoice will update shortly. And that's it. Back to you, Michael.
And congrats on the Blue Jays for winning. What you saw right there is live. So VibeCheck's not a real app, but what WorkOS OffKit is doing is sending events to Stripe. So we're sending these events that can accumulate with different meters inside the Stripe platform, and you can build automated billing on top of this. So it auto-syncs that user count into Stripe in the increment and decrement over time. What Eric was setting up, you really just have to do once. After that, the whole thing just works. You never have to write the synchronization code back and forth, receive webhooks, deal with any of that nightmare. It just plugs in. This leverages a new feature inside of Stripe billing that you might not have known about called meters. And Stripe is investing a ton in this over the next year. So we expect this to get better and better and better. You can actually extend this to support product entitlements, where for enterprise customers, they might have certain capabilities enabled or disabled. That can exist actually within this same Stripe billing integration too. So if you're working on something like this or you would want this functionality, please come talk with us. We'd love to get you early access to this. And probably the best feature of all that all developers love, this lets you delete code. And we all know bugs come from code, so you delete code, delete bugs. All right, so that's OffKit and Stripe billing. Cool, so we talked about integrating with Stripe. But there's a lot of other platforms you probably have to integrate with when you build an app. There's CRMs, there's marketing tools, there's other places that you might be storing data or your customers might be using. And integrations are actually essential in the era of AI products. All of these AI apps, to actually do something, they need to plug into your stuff. And they need to not just be able to read something, but actually be able to go change something, go mutate it in some system. You can't provide value if you can't connect to your users' stuff out there. But building these connectors has always been like a huge headache. Managing credentials, tokens, configuration, OAuth redirects, it's just a nightmare. And as you add more integrations, it gets harder and harder and harder to manage. And so we've been working on a brand new product here that we're super excited to announce for the very first time that we think brings a really elegant solution to this kind of gnarly problem. And we're calling this WorkOS Pipes. So what does WorkOS Pipes do? Well, essentially in the previous world, your app had to integrate with all this stuff that's out there. These could be different apps, services, your customer data, your customers' systems that they're using. And you had to build each of these integrations, maintain them, and keep them up to date. And with Pipes, we're just solving that problem for you. Instead, WorkOS sits in the middle, does all the integration between these systems, and securely manages all of those tokens. It handles the auth, the token management, and it's built on the same secure foundation as the rest of the WorkOS platform you're probably already using. So, who wants to see pipes? What do you think? All right. Let's give our very first demo of pipes. Please welcome Dan from WorkOS to the stage.
Hey, everybody. So we're back here in our Vibe Check dashboard. Vibe Check, of course, is measuring customer sentiment, whether satisfied or frustrated. And a lot of the times, that data is actually stored in other systems, like maybe Intercom or Slack, like we've got kind of showing on the dashboard now. Now, Vibe Check, we've been using WorkOS pipes to integrate with these services for a couple of reasons. One, I don't really want to get into the nitty-gritty of OAuth. I want to focus on building my integration. And two, we're already using WorkOS for authentication. I'm not storing passwords, and I don't want to get into the business of storing refresh tokens or anything else. I just want to build and ship, iterate quickly, and get feedback from my customers. And speaking of feedback, we've been getting requests for Salesforce integration, so we're going to go ahead and set that up with pipes. So I'll go over to the WorkOS dashboard. Scroll down to the pipes section. All right, I've got a couple that are already set up. I'm going to go ahead and connect provider to get Salesforce in here. Let's scroll down and add that. Great. And if I've got the shared credentials that are great for development. If I've got a Salesforce app already set up, or I'm ready for production, need some different scopes, I could configure that here as well. But for now, I just want to get started developing. I'm going to use the shared credentials, so I'll just pick the scopes I need to get started here. And I'm good to go. Back over in the Vibe Check app, we've got a nice little settings area. Now, I could build out this UI, but what I'm going to do instead is use a WorkOS widget to take care of that. Now, widgets are something we launched last year, and they're kind of these modules that kind of bundle both a front-end component and the back-end APIs into one kind of just module you can drop into your app. Eric demoed the user management widget during the Stripe demo just a minute ago, and I'm going to do the same thing with the pipes widget. On the integrations page, I will just comment this out. Drop in the pipes widget. Man, maybe cursor's giving me a little more help than I need. All right. There we go. Remember, notice we're just taking an auth token, which we're getting from a context since we're already authenticated within WorkOS user. We can just pull that out of the token and provide that as context to the widget, so it knows what user and what organization we're dealing with here. I'll go ahead and save that. Head back to the dashboard. And, oh dang, I've got a connection widget there. All right, so I've been speaking from the point of view of the developer of Vibe Check. I'm going to step into the shoes of a user of Vibe Check for just a sec. Because that's the person who's connecting their account to Vibe Check. And I'll go ahead and connect my Salesforce account. So that pops up with the consent screen from Salesforce. This all looks legit. I'll go ahead and allow that. And I'll head back to the settings screen, and now we're connected. So that's the first half to it. And then back in the developer role, I've now got that connection. I need to kind of, how do I get that token into my app? So I'll head back over to the, let's see. Head back to my editor. And it's pretty simple. We've just got an SDK endpoint that should just call that access token, pass in the user information and the org ID and the provider I care about, in this case, Salesforce. Again, since I'm authenticated with WorkOS, I can just pull that out of the token, send that off to the request, and then provide that token, fully refreshed if it needs to be, just a fresh access token I can use to fetch that data for the rest of my app. Speaking of which, we probably have time to sync a little bit of data. We'll head back over to the Vibe Check dashboard now, and we should be seeing a little bit more case data coming in from Salesforce, revenue stuff, some contract details, so things are looking good. So that's pipes really briefly, kind of the easiest way to get started connecting your app to third-party providers out there. Back to you, Michael.
For Dan, that's awesome. Oh, dang is right. WorkOS pipes. You know, even Salesforce doesn't live demo Salesforce on stage. So what you're seeing here is totally working end-to-end. Pipes is the fastest way to ship integrations with your app. So if your customers are asking us to connect their data systems, we showed Salesforce here, and you saw Slack and Intercom, but we're bringing this to everything else. GitHub, Linear, whatever systems out there that your customers will want to get data from and integrate, you can do it with pipes. It does all the stuff under the hood around managing tokens and actually integrating with these systems, but importantly, it also does the UI. We have these drop-in components. You don't have to build that kind of category of apps. You don't have to set up OAuth redirects. You don't have to do any of that. You just get started building your app, give it the token, and then get out of the way. I want to emphasize that this is actually built on top of tons of stuff we've done at WorkOS over many, many years. So despite this being a brand new product that we're showcasing today, giving a preview, this actually leverages everything we've built in OffKit, everything we've built in our SSO products in the past, our OpenID connectors, everything we built for WorkOS widgets, all of our UI components, and even our product WorkOS Vault, which we didn't really get into today, which is a whole encryption service. So those tokens are securely managed under the hood and fully end-to-end encrypted on disk. So pipes isn't just the easiest way to integrate all these systems together. We actually think it's the most secure way, which is really, really important, especially if you maybe have AI writing your code. All right, so that's pipes. So we've talked about how your app can get data from other sources. With pipes, you're going out to get data from something like Stripe or Salesforce. But what if you have other people that want to get data from your app? What if there's other developers that want to interface with your system? What if you want to actually provide an API to other companies? Most businesses in the past haven't provided APIs when they got started. Something like the Slack API came later. The Intercom API came later. But in today's world with AI systems, actually making your product API accessible is more important than ever before. Because there's this little thing emerging called agents. And agents are essentially autonomous agents. They're kind of programs running that use AI to go do tasks on behalf of users. Now, they might be able to run a headless browser session in the background and go click, 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 and kind of impersonate the user. But the most powerful way that agents will interface with systems is through API, through actually defined, scalable, robust data connectors. And so we've been working on something here to actually allow all of you to ship an API in your app really, really quickly. And we're calling this agent-ready API keys. So bringing everything that you might have already done or seen in the world around API keys, up until this point, certainly you should have that, but also bringing you into this world where agents can access your system. We're here at Enterprise ReadyConf. Enterprise customers demand APIs in systems. They want to automate, they want to script, they're going to want agents to access your products. So we think this is the right time for this, and it's a really, really powerful thing for both human actors, kind of human developers that are interfacing things, and also with AI systems. To give our first demo of this, please welcome Nick to the stage from WorkOS.
Thank you, Michael. All right, so in our Vibe Check app, we now have a new requirement, and that's to give programmatic access to this customer metrics data that we were talking about earlier. And specifically, we want AI agents to be able to programmatically access this data. So when we're thinking about that, we're thinking about APIs. And we're thinking about APIs, we need API keys. So let's check out my settings page. Got a little placeholder here to do add API keys. How hard can it be? Well, we got to think about creating and managing these API keys securely. We've got to think about what's the UI that we put on this page for our customers. And that sounds really hard. But actually, with WorkOS, it's going to be easy. So let's pop over to my text editor and go to the API keys page, comment out my to-do, and we will throw in an API keys widget. There we go. All right, yeah, and just like Dan demoed in the last demo, this is another one of our widgets. Really easy API. You just throw in this API keys component and pass it an auth token. And let's take a look at what this looks like in our application. Cool, so we've got this nice empty state. Let's go ahead and create an API key. All right, so we're going to use this API key to fetch some metrics, so we can call the key metrics, and we will give it the view metrics permission. Cool, so I see that I get to see this API key just one time, so I'll go ahead and copy it and close that dialog, and we now have an API key. So let's go ahead and use it. I started working on a API route, and it's very simple right now. All it does is you call /API/metrics, and it returns unauthorized. So we want this to do something. So we want to take a look at the API key that's coming in the header, and we want to return unauthorized if it's not valid, and return something if it is valid. So let's give that a shot. We now have this very nice function coming from our OffKit Next.js SDK called validate API key. And it's going to give us some data about that API key if it's valid, and if it's not, we can just return unauthorized. So we'll do that. And then, yeah, if it is valid, we will call our getMetrics function, and we'll go ahead and pass in the owner of this API key. So we're only returning metrics that are relevant for this organization. So let's call this API. To do that, I'm going to call my friend Claude here. And let's see, please give me some customer metrics data. Please. All right, and that's looking pretty good. So it's making a request to my new API endpoint, and it's passing in a bearer token of your token here. It's never done this before, but look at that. It's still returning unauthorized. That's perfect. So now we're seeing Claude is saying, I need your API key to access the customer metrics endpoint. It's asking for my bearer token, and it's telling me that this is an extremely secure operation, and I can trust Claude. So cool. I'll go ahead and paste my key right into Claude, and we'll see what Claude does with that. Great. It looks like we're calling the API endpoint with this new token. Let's give it a shot. And we got back some JSON data from our API endpoint. So working as expected, and Claude has given us a summary of our customer metrics data. So our API key worked there. So let's pop back over. I just realized I shared my secret API key with all of you. So either all of you can forget that you just saw that, or I should actually probably revoke it. So let's pop over here, and inside of our widget, we get this nice little revoke key button. And I'll refresh briefly to show that we can see in this dialog here that we get a nice last used indicator. We see it's used just now. Good warning, I still want to revoke it. All right, and the key's been revoked. Let's go ahead and try making that request again to Claude. And it's going to try with the same API key, which is now revoked, so we get that unauthorized error. So worked as expected. So that's API keys, and back to you, Michael.
One more round of applause. That's great. So what you saw there, we think, is the easiest way to add an API to your app. It removes the headache of actually generating keys, storing them, revoking them, tracking when they're used, and building all of those pesky UI widgets that absolutely have to work. Even that experience that we showed where the key is only visible once, that's a really important part of the API key security lifecycle, where once it's shown, it's actually hashed, it's no longer accessible. So in addition to, again, being the fastest way to do this, we also think it's the most secure. And this sets up your product to actually have agents to integrate. So this provides access for both those human developers, or maybe humans using agents, but also for people to be able to take those keys and plug them into other systems and securely access. Those drop-in UI widgets have the full life cycle to create, verify, and revoke keys. And we're adding dynamic scopes and permissions to this, and along with the logging. So, there's an old joke, to err is human, but to screw up 10,000 times per second, you need a computer. And that definitely happens with agents. And so we're very cognizant that in building API keys and giving systems access to your data, we need a way to control that access and have it be logged. So that's all coming to agent-ready API keys as well. So in addition to WorkOS making your app enterprise-ready, we're working towards making your app agent-ready. And we have a lot more planned for this for the future, so stay tuned. That's agent-ready API keys. So those are 5 major features we showed you today. But there's one more thing that we want to show you. This is something we've actually been thinking about for quite a while, for all year. It's a very early preview. So if you go back about a year, and we were talking at ERC in 2024, Some people in the audience had their laptop open, building stuff, writing code, of course, which we love. And this is kind of how they were working. They had their IDE open, the cursor in it, and was actually typing code, like a Neanderthal. Today, we write code like this. How many of you are using AI to write code? It's everybody, right? And this is kind of crazy. This doesn't just tiny startups that have changed in this way. If you go talk to people at Anthropic or even Google, they'll tell you that in some cases, a majority of the code being written is being authored by AI, where people are in the loop still, but kind of less and less. AI is getting more and more and more capable. And it's only going to get better and better. So something that was previously really hard, writing code and building software, something I suffered years in college to learn how to do, getting my CS degree, now Claude can do this for us, and Codex can do this for us, and Kimi K2 and open source models can do these things for us. And this is an enormous transformation. I don't think it's discussed enough how big of a jump it is from maybe people being in the loop a little bit to being able to one-shot full applications. Perhaps my favorite quote on this is from Andrej Karpathy, who coined the term vibe coding. And he said, there's a new kind of coding, I'm calling it vibe coding, where you fully give into the vibes, embrace exponentials, and forget that the code even exists. I'm building a project or web app, but I'm not really coding. I just see stuff, I say stuff, run stuff, copy-paste stuff, and it mostly works. So this was earlier this year that Andre said this, and the term vibe coding has really caught on to describe this way of writing code and authoring stuff kind of in combination with the computer, in combination with these AI LLM systems. Computers have actually become more human in this way. In the past, you can think about people had to go to the machine. Now the machine is coming to us. And writing software is getting as easy as writing English. I think this is totally transformative. This is democratizing access to creating software. And it's just been this monumental shift. You've probably seen some of the products that have grown. You've heard about them expanding and kind of transforming. These vibe coding platforms that are giving this ability to create software to people that have maybe never done it before. Things like Replit or Bolt or Lovable, Claude Code that you can chat with. You saw that there. Natural language interface to making API calls. Or even things like Figma or Canva, design tools that you can use this conversational interface to build and ship full experiences. There's been this explosion in new tools that has enabled millions and millions of people to build software for the first time. And I actually think this is the single biggest moment of creativity democratization that we've had in the tech industry. But there's an enormous gap missing between this. So people are playing around with this and building new things, but there's an enormous gap between what you can build with these products and then actually what you can use in the enterprise. This AI-generated code isn't guaranteed to be safe. In many cases, it's actually full of bugs. And if you ask Claude, go fix the bugs, it's oh, certainly, and then introduces more bugs. I read something where there was authentication for an app, and it just deleted all of the authentication code because that fixed the bug. Again, no code, no bugs, right? So this is a huge missing gap, though. How do we take all the power that's in these vibe coding platforms and actually bring it into the workplace, bring it to the enterprise? Where's that gap? What's missing? We want to do it safely, we want to do it securely. We want to have it use all of my data, and we want it to actually be compliant and logged with our policy. Ideally, we also want it to be collaborative with a team. Different people have different permissions. And we want to be able to take this from prototype into production. What if vibe coding could be enterprise ready? Sounds a little bit like WorkOS. So this is a really early preview of something that we've been building. And it's just so exciting. It's not ready yet for you all, I'm sorry. But it's just so exciting, I felt absolutely compelled to include it in this presentation. This is a new AI-powered app builder that's designed for creating internal apps at your companies. It's built on everything that we've done for years at the WorkOS platform. So it has things like SSO and SCIM and RBAC and logging, all that stuff out of the box. It's already leveraging pipes, which you just saw, for all those integrations. So it can connect to your data systems, whether that's HubSpot or Salesforce or Snowflake. It has workflows, it has notifications, it has sharing built in for multiplayer collaboration. And we're calling this WorkOS Studio. So for our last demo of the day, please welcome Jason from WorkOS to give you a preview of WorkOS Studio.
Thanks, Michael. Well, let's get started building an internal app with WorkOS Studio. I want to create an app for my sales team to find customers who have purchased prepaid credits but are running low. That way, the account executive can reach out at the most opportune moment. So I'm going to just prompt Studio to make that for me. And I'm using a snippet editor just for the purposes of the demo here. So Studio isn't just going to fetch this data one shot, but rather it's going to generate code so that the data will always be fresh, whether I check it today, tomorrow, next week. Notice here it's connecting to Stripe. I didn't explicitly ask it that, but because I have Stripe as a connector in WorkOS pipes, it knows that it can make that tool call as it sees fit. Here we go. We got a sortable interactive app here that I can play with here. It's almost what I'm looking for, but I want to add a detail view. So let's prompt it to do that. I know we have more data in Salesforce. I'm not exactly sure what that data is, but maybe Studio can help me out. So I'm going to say, when I click a row, I want you to pull Salesforce details. Now, we've previously mapped resource IDs between Stripe and Salesforce, the two different systems in this example. And Studio helped us do that. So it knows that Hooli in Stripe is the same Hooli that exists in Salesforce. It's coming back right now with a list of these custom attributes that are unique to my Salesforce instance. I don't necessarily need fit score or account source for this demo, so I'm going to deselect them and confirm that selection. It's going to regenerate the app. Just in case it comes back with something that I didn't have in mind, every modification you make with a prompt is versioned, so you can easily roll back just in case. All right, so now we got this detail view on the right. Very cool. I can see some more data there. Now, what I really want is personalization, right? I want to be able to log in and then only see the accounts that I'm responsible for. So let's ask Studio if it can help with that. I want to add a filter here. To filter by account rep. So it's going to look at my IDP, in this case Okta, understand my company's org chart, find all the account executives, then look in Salesforce, search for those account executives, and return the companies, the customers, grouped by AE. So here you see I'm logged in, Jason Berry, that's me, and I see the customers here that I'm responsible for. It seems there are two that I should be reaching out to here. So this is great. This is every modification here. It has a URL, so I can easily share it with my team. You can think of this as kind of like a document, almost like sharing a Google Doc. It's kind of disposable in that nature. You can share it at any stage of your development. So Studio doesn't just pull data in, it can also push data out into the systems that your company already uses. So what would be really cool is if there was a button here that I could click and it would create an opportunity in Salesforce. So I'm going to ask it to do that. Anytime you write data into another system, it will show you a form in a modal dialog so that it provides this kind of like human in the loop step so you can make sure that it looks how you expect it to look before you save it. That way your team can keep track of it, your manager knows I'm on top of things in Salesforce. So here's this new blue Create Renewal opportunity button it came up with. I'm going to click it. It's pulling in these custom fields that are unique to my Salesforce instance here. So I'm going to say, OK, this looks right. I need to create a new renewal opportunity for Hooli. It leverages the Salesforce pipes integration that we had connected, and I can click and see that it has indeed been created here in Salesforce. So here's the step and so forth, all the data that I just submitted. So that's an example. I'm just using Salesforce as an example. You can write data into any third-party data source that is supported by WorkOS pipes. But what I really want to show off here is that notice when I select a customer owned by a different account exec, that Create Renewal Opportunity button is grayed out. That's because Studio is aware of my role within my company and the data that I have access to in third-party systems. So it knows that Stark Industries, in this example, is not one of my accounts. So I shouldn't be able to, say, create a new opportunity in Salesforce. You inherit the user permissions of the connected data sources to third parties whenever you log in. Or if you don't have a seat in that third-party system, you can configure it to inherit a subset of the internal app's author's permissions. This is great because you don't have to worry about permissioning systems, governance, data governance. Just because you made a new internal app, it kind of inherits the permissions that your teammates already have. So there's one more thing I want to show, and that is that it would be really great if I didn't have to log into this every day and check, hey, did any of my accounts, did they cross that low credit threshold? What if it could proactively reach out to me? Can Studio do that? Well, if you have the Stripe connector available in WorkOS pipes, then it certainly can. So I'm going to ask it to notify account reps each morning anytime that an account crosses that 20% threshold here. So it sees that I've made this Slack integration previously. I've configured that in Slack. And it's going to build this scheduled task and orchestrate it here. All right, and you can see this new little widget that it pushed to the canvas. Now I can click this notification to test it out and make sure everything's wired up correctly. So I'm going to click it and switch over to Slack, and you can see that it's wired up correctly and gave my team a little notice of who we should reach out to. So this is just a little preview of what Studio has to offer, leveraging the WorkOS ecosystem. It's super easy to build powerful internal apps. So yeah, we'd love to hear more about the pain points and problems that you face when building internal apps. So please find us and talk to us later today. Back to you, Michael.
One more round of applause for Jason and the Studio team. This is still really, really early in its development lifecycle, but it already kind of feels like it's going to be a hit. If you'd like preview access to this or would like to work with us on getting it ready for production, please come and meet some folks in the WorkOS team, talk with us later. We would love to get it into your hands as soon as we can. WorkOS Studio is a collaborative AI app creator. So it's collaborative in that multiple people can build stuff together. And it's not built for going and making kind of random websites online. It's not built for prototyping things. It's built for getting stuff done in the workplace, actually building interactive, data-rich applications inside of your companies. Because it's built on WorkOS, it comes with things like SSO, SCIM, RBAC, audit logs, even API keys and pipes for these integrations. So it's leveraging this full platform we've been building for many, many years. This interface is actually powered by Radix, which is the same underlying system that powers ShadCN and many other design systems in the world. That's something that's built and open sourced by WorkOS. And essentially what this allows you to do is make vibe coding apps fully enterprise ready. So we think this is going to be an absolutely enormous shift. I think we're the first ones, or really maybe the only people, that are trying to build this vibe coding experience specifically for enterprise use and specifically enterprise customers. So we're really, really excited about this. Much more to come in the future. All right, those are the 6 things. One more round of applause for the demoers. OffKit for ChatGPT apps, OffKit for platforms, embedding it into things like Convex and Supabase in your platform, OffKit in Stripe billing, synchronizing users back and forth between Stripe, WorkOS pipes, of course, to help you really quickly integrate your app with these third-party systems, agent-ready API keys so you can ship your API to customers, and last but not least, what you just saw, WorkOS Studio. Marshall McLuhan wrote this line, "The medium is the message." He famously wrote this. And if you haven't heard this, what he meant is that the way that information is delivered, the medium, actually has a greater impact on society than like the content that's inside the medium. So the way that we experienced information through radio versus television is actually the difference. That's actually the important thing. And right now, the medium is changing. And it's changing with AI, and it's changing around all of us right now. It is incredibly exciting, and it's also really hard to feel what this is going to mean. I feel like January was a decade ago. ERC last year was a totally different world. There were different products. There were different ways of building stuff. It's crazy how many things are different. And so in trying to think about the future, trying to actually look forward, I think sometimes it's helpful to go back and study the past, when transitions like this occurred previously, and to kind of get a sense of how they went down. And so one example of this that I think is kind of present is actually cinema. So around the turn of the 19th century is when kind of the film camera was invented for movies. We invented this new form of media. But actually, the first movies that were played in movie houses were just a play that was filmed. It was just like going to a normal theatrical production where people are on stage and there's a single camera right in the middle filming the play. And you would go sit in the movie house and watch a play, people performing that frontally. That was it. And this didn't just go on for like a couple years. This was like 20 years of how cinema existed. It's kind of nuts to think about that. And it wasn't until someone got the bright idea that like, hey, we can actually move the camera, that modern cinema was really born. This ability to actually take the camera, the device that had changed the medium, and actually incorporate that into the message, into how things were communicating, the art form. And it seems obvious in hindsight, right? This wasn't any sort of like technology breakthrough. It's not like you couldn't move cameras before. It was more of an artistic one, like really more of a cultural one, the discovery in the medium. And since then, since we started moving the camera with film and with cinema, we have just kept moving it. And we've moved it to different places. And there's things that we've made that have, people could have never even imagined that we would be able to make them because we chose to move the camera and kept evolving in that way. And the point I'm trying to make is that every technology wave has this type of thing. Early music was just live concerts recorded. It wasn't until later that people realized, hey, we can actually like sequence tracks and create music through recording, like the Beatles. Early television was just filmed radio. It was a guy sitting at a desk, like reading a script. Early video games were just reproductions of physical games. Anybody ever played like pinball on Windows? Right? Now video games are totally different, right? And so for all of these, it took time for us to figure out how to move that proverbial camera, how to actually discover in the medium what it meant. But every time this happens, we get a little bit faster at it. Society adopts faster and sooner. We discover it a little bit sooner. And I think right now, this is actually happening with AI. We've changed how software is made, but we haven't yet changed what is made with it. There's early signs in this being able to happen. With something like Studio, there's this new level of immediacy. There's this really fluid interaction to it, this like human engagement. And it's turning into this thing where it's more like synthesis over syntax, where the conversation itself is the new code base. Even with WorkOS Studio, we haven't moved the camera yet. We're still rebuilding the dashboards from before. We're essentially filming the play, and we realize that. But if history is any signal, it's actually not going to be this way for very long. Soon, we'll be creating something entirely new. I can't tell you what that is. I don't know. But what I can do is invite you all on the journey to figure it out with us. That's why we're here at Enterprise ReadyConf, to explore the future together and to try to understand how AI is changing everything about what we build. We have a super full day full of brilliant people, tons of inspiring talks, and real demos ahead. I am thrilled that you are all here. Let's dive in together. Welcome to ERC.